Caroline, I think we should get started since we've got Elaine who's got some timelines there.
Perfect. Okay.
We'll start off
this again. Perfect.
We'll start off this evening with the land acknowledgement. Spanning generations, acknowledgement of the land is a traditional custom of Indigenous people when welcoming outsiders onto their land and into their homes. To build respectful relationships, acknowledging the land is an important part of reconciliation. In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we acknowledge we are on and support mentoring for youth in the traditional territories across Alberta of the many First Nations from Treaty 6, 7, and 8, the Métis of the 8 Alberta settlements, and Inuit people whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. These lands are the traditional meeting grounds and homes for many Indigenous people for generations. We are grateful to the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We are all treaty people, beneficiaries of the peace and prosperity the treaties brought, and committed also to working towards the equity and justice the treaties promised. Today, I'm joining you from Treaty 8 up in Slave Lake, Alberta, and my colleagues, Caroline Gosling and Al Chapman, are joining you from Treaty 6 in Edmonton, and Shannon is way down south in, I still believe, Treaty 7. Shannon, is that where you're from?
Yes, correct.
Perfect. And just a quick note that if you have some interesting things that you would like to participate in this week, it is Métis Week from November 13th to 19th, and there's lots of great activities I know happening in and around the Edmonton area. I know that there's some in my local hometown that I'm going to enjoy. And I'll turn it over to Caroline.
Okay. Are we doing introductions, Kim?
Go for it.
No, my name's Caroline Gosling. I am a retired educator, and I have worked with AMP in many different capacities. And right now I consider myself a friend of AMP. So I'm helping by supporting some of the webinars and other presentations and work. So I don't know if Al wants to introduce himself.
Thanks, Caroline. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Al Chapman. I'm the lead for governance and projects for AMP and work alongside Kim, and actually was onboarded by Caroline because I actually, when Caroline retired, I say retired, I don't know, your retirement is pretty busy. So I took over some of Caroline's duties as she went into retirement. So good afternoon to everyone.
My name is Kim McConnell, and I work as part of the AMP team, and I do most of my connections for mentoring or teen mentoring in schools. And I'm very happy to have our intimate gathering today. You will see on the screen, we have Shannon Whalen. She is our tech support from the Calgary Regional Consortium. And so you'll hear us asking Shannon to do some of our background tech stuff every now and then. So welcome. So we heard that Elaine is from Saddle Lake and Rose is joining us from Vancouver. Rose, are you joining us from a youth serving organization or from a school?
From Big Brothers of Greater Vancouver, so youth serving organization.
Wonderful, thanks for joining us. Okay, Caroline.
Okay. Well, we've heard who people are and your role. We are curious to know, though, where you heard about this webinar and what's one thing you're hoping to get out of this today. So I don't know, Rose, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yes. So I am Rose Higgins, pronouns she and her, and located on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations here in Vancouver, the program director at Big Brothers of Greater Vancouver. I'm on the newsletter for Alberta Mentoring Partnership. So that's how I learned of the webinar. I did encourage our school-based manager to join. I'm not sure if he will pop in a few minutes or not, but if not, I'll take a few things away for him. But I think, especially being newly in a director role, I find that I'm caught up in a lot of the operations, and I never want to lose sight of the story. So that's kind of what drew me to come in to hear some stories, especially getting a sense of what mentorship stories sound like in Alberta, sensing it's probably very similar to the stories that we hear in our school-based programs. But yeah, just more curiosity and also the opportunity to meet and see others in the same field.
Thanks for
Thanks,
that, Rose.
Elaine, how about you?
Okay. Okay, my name is Elaine Cardinal. I'm actually, I lived in Edmonton for like 15 years. I just moved home March. This is when I started this job in March. I am a career counselor at junior, senior high school on a reserve called Saddle Lake Reserve. And I just want to learn a lot of things, actually. One of the most important things that I want to know is, how do I get this going? I think it would be a great idea to start mentoring, getting students to play that role, just giving me ideas. And I love stories. I think that's going to be a lot of where I'm going to get my information from, the stories that I hear. And unfortunately, I'm not able to attend till 5:30 because I got to be out of here in like half an hour.
We'll speed things up, Elaine.
Okay, well, no, but you're going to send me something anyway, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing that I was hoping to gather today, I know my needs are very connections. I really need connections who I can team up with to give me the best ideas on how to do the mentorship program here.
Perfect. Thanks, Elaine. And Elaine, if we don't really kind of get to that connection piece during our webinar today, either Kim or Al or I can follow up with you and give you some people that you might want to connect with or talk to. So that's another thing we could do if you're not finding it in this webinar.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So again, we're going to talk a little bit about some different mentoring options, some of the benefits, and then what some predominantly schools, but also organizations are currently doing that you might be able to get some ideas from and information from. So that's kind of how we're starting. A little bit about the Alberta Mentoring Partnership. I think, Rose, if you get the newsletter, you're probably pretty familiar, and Elaine, you might also be. It's Alberta Mentoring Partnership does not do any direct mentoring. They're an organization made up of government ministries and schools and community agencies who work together to support organizations and schools in the province that do provide mentoring. And obviously our vision is that we know young people thrive through mentoring relationships, and the mission is to strengthen our capacity to support and enhance mentoring. And Kim, do you want to talk about the mentoring in schools part?
So we have a wonderful private funder. who has provided us a grant from the year 2019 to 2022 to support mentoring in schools and to help to increase the teacher leader capacity as a way to enhance our youth social and emotional mental well-being in schools. So we've had, prior to me coming to Alberta Mentoring Partnership, Caroline was able to do some face-to-face meetings, and then we reverted to COVID online meetings, and we've continued in that manner so that we can reach out to folks from across the province and then outside of our province as well. As you see today, if we were hosting an in-person event, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to join us. So this is a great way to make those connections, Elaine, as you were talking about. We also are working on updating some of our resources that we'll highlight later on today. And then being there, as Caroline said, to be that support to connect different agencies and schools together. So being that network support. And exciting news, our grant funder has indicated that they would allow us to extend for another year just due to COVID. And so we will be continuing out in this manner until 2023.
Thanks, Kim. So, oh, my little arrow doesn't want to move. So when we talk about mentoring, we often talk about different kinds of mentoring, whether that be formal or informal. And there's a gentleman by the name of Derek Peterson. I don't know if anyone is familiar with him. He started his work in Alaska, and then has also worked in different parts of Alberta and BC. And he has this, he I guess teaches youth and adults about this web of support. So we talk about how, and he talks about anchors and how we all need 5 anchors in our lives. One is great, but more is better. So, and 5 seems to be the magic number. So his idea is that some mentors are anchors, but not all. It kind of depends on that relationship, and but all anchors are mentors. So this is just a quick little snapshot that explains a little bit about the work that he does, and then we'll just kind of get your thoughts after you see it. Oh.
So what I tell folks is when I'm on the airplane, and if I want to have a short conversation or no conversation with my seatmate, when they ask, what do you do for a living? I say I do school improvement around the country, and typically we don't talk. But if I feel like the person sitting next to me is, you know, if I have time, if I have energy, if I, for some reason, feel compelled to talk with them, I'll say, well, they say, what do you do for a living? And I say, I can measure how much love your kid has and correlate that to their thriving and to
At one point I had the door closed because I was looking for something in the closet. I was moving. I was bringing my bag out.
And I'll say, I can measure how much love your kids have or grandkids, and I can correlate that to how much they thrive, their stability, their academic progress, their persistence, their perseverance, and I can tell you the likelihood of them doing drugs, alcohol, having suicidal ideation, being violent. And we will honestly talk the whole rest of the flight, because everybody has nieces or nephews, children of their own, grandchildren. I can tell you stories of going through customs where my seatmate has waited for me out at baggage claim after I got through customs, waited for me outside in the lobby after that, walked me to my rental car because being truly concerned about his kids. And so what I do is, when I'm on an airplane, we call it the napkin talk, because usually there's a serving napkin. And so we're going to use this piece of paper as the napkin talk. But what I show is that I make a heart in the corner, And I talk about everybody loves their kids, right? Everybody loves their kids. And we've all sat in rooms where we're dealing with a parent, grandparent, a teacher. They'll talk about that emotion, but you'll just have seen what they've done to a child and you'll think, that's not what love looks like. I've never seen love look like that before. So they're having this feeling, they say they know what love is, but you think, no, that's not it. Now, the minute we say that's not it, it's going to create a gap between me and that person. They're going to stop listening to me, and their usual attitude is, well, you're not raising my kid. You're not raising this kid. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So this story really has been created because love is out there in the world, but we drop it through a prism of science, right? So love is white light. You drop it through a prism of science, and you have Roy G. Biv, right? That's what the spectrum. And so we call our work a full spectrum approach, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And it's the science of what that love looks like is what we really do in our work. So red is the rule of 5. It says that every child needs at least 5 caring adults in their life. It can be mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, uncle. If you have an intact extended family in your neighborhood, good on you, you just won the lottery. And if they love you and protect you and care for you, seriously, you won the lottery. And our work would say that is an awesome way, probably the best way to raise kids in the world, right? Trouble is we live in a highly mobile society. So sometimes we got mom, dad, a teacher, a coach, and dad's best friend. That's 5 too. And America and most Western countries these days are highly mobile. And that's what's happening is they're moving around. You can have a single mom, 2 teachers, a coach, and a youth employer. You can have a single dad, a teacher, a coach, 2 people from the church, synagogue, temple, or mosque. You can have 2 grandparents, 2 teachers, and someone from church, synagogue, temple, or mosque. You can have a dad, a teacher, dad's best friend, and someone from the church, synagogue, or mosque. What our data set is pretty strong on is that every kid needs at least 5, and it doesn't matter who those 5 are. What mostly matters is the level of connectedness they have to the child and to the teenager. Orange are the tangible supports, the things that we can measure that come from these adults. Food, shelter, quality education, youth programs, time in a church, synagogue, temple, or mosque. And what we know, though, is those protective factors, those orange strings that these adults throw, need to come from adults and through relationship. They cannot come from posters or from the TV, or they can't come from a book. They have to come through relationship. Then you have yellow. Those are intangible supports. Those are the virtues and values that we think are so important for children to have. Our American values, or the values of our church, synagogue, temple, or mosque, or the values of our culture, whether it be Navajo, Athabascan, or Norwegian Lutheran. Those things like courage, integrity, honesty are those virtues that we all and all around the world value so highly. Green is on top of every web of support, a child or teenager lives, right? The good news is 80% of our kids are normal, and 10% tend to be smaller balloons, and 10% tend to be huge balloons, like the Goodyear blimp, right? And so these children live on top of this web. Well, the more cracks you would have in this web, like we've talked about falling through the cracks, right? In our culture, what do those cracks mean? The cracks are the absence of a developmental ecology. And we can measure not only the red, orange, yellow, this developmental ecology, we can measure the innate resilience of each child on top of that web. Then blue is scissors cuts. And while we are out there working hard to build this web for children, there are forces in our families, forces in our communities, in our neighborhoods that are actually eroding the web away from the child while we are trying to build it. And there are actually attitudes and behaviors that the kid itself, him or herself, uses to erode the web. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we know what those scissors cuts are and then work to make sure that they are not cutting the web up. Indigo is caring for the carers. Every one of these, we call them anchors, needs a web of support under them. right? The carers. So whether it be the parent needs respite, the grandma needs respite, the teacher needs a web under him, the coach needs a web under him, the person from the faith community needs a web under him. And what we know is that too few adults in this world are connected in their own communities to their own web. And so what's happening is you almost can't give what you don't have. And we have data sets from Johns Hopkins University that are longitudinal that just talk about the fact that we adults are lonelier than we've ever been. And the generations coming up, I'm 54, so the generation before me is more lonely than me, but it looks like the millennials are getting more connected. It looks like the millennials are making decisions to create this web without even knowing it. They're feeling like they're missing something, and so they're making economic choices and lifestyle choices to have more of a community. They're behaving that way. Finally is Violet. Violet is social norms, and it's like a wind that can blow up this whole web. It can be crystal meth coming into a community. It can be changing social norms of it's just okay to do drugs. It's okay to have feral children. The social norms can be positive, can keep the child safely on the web, or they can be negative and blow the whole thing up. And so oftentimes when I'm doing consulting, my consulting work is usually add more people to the child, because that's usually one of their frequent deficits. The second one is build the web up more. Third one is to reduce scissors cuts. And then sometimes, if a family has a really strong web of support and they're worried about their kids and they're living in a community with unhealthy social norms, I've actually written reports to the community and to the individuals in the community saying, you move, sell your house, get out of here, because you can't filter this for long, right? When your child becomes 14 or 15, goes into middle school, there's going to be a natural pulling back from this web, and I don't know if your child will be protected here, or at least our data set would say as they lose some of their strings, as their developmental ecology thins, they're going to be more at risk, and you might be best served by not living here.
So any thoughts, comments as I try to get out of the full screen here?
Rose, have you seen the napkin talk before?
No.
No, I had never seen it. I don't know what year it was created, but there's definitely some core elements of it that are still very relevant. You know, there's definitely a kind of gender binary piece in there, as well as, you know, some overlays of the violet. I think he described it as wind or something, but that influence, you know, the discussions of discrimination or racial justice would maybe fit in there. So it'd be really interesting to see, you know, a web of supports 2.0 or something to see how it would change. But yeah, I really like that.
What some organizations and schools are doing is looking at how can mentors support youth in creating, like finding and creating their web of support, because they know that some mentors, maybe not all, but some mentors aren't in a youth life over the long term. So how can they help support the youth to build that web so that when they're not there, there's other people in that web. So that's one of the pieces of work that's happening kind of around that, in the intersection of this web of support and mentors. One of the differences is that in the web of support, the youth chooses who their anchors are. So as opposed to with mentors, where most often they're matched and the youth isn't necessarily choosing. So sort of a bit of an intersection there.
Caroline, every time I see this video, something else pops up for me. And I was reminded of an activity that I had helped one of my colleagues do in her junior high school, where they listed every student's name down on a piece of very large graph paper. And then every staff member had to go around and indicate if they were connected to that student. And then as a staff, they took a look and said, okay, who doesn't have a connection? And then they kind of dug a little deeper on how you could make those connections. So it isn't necessarily that the youth is choosing them, but the adults in that building were finding ways to make themselves more available to be in that student circle of influence, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Okay. And you probably both know all the different benefits that there are for mentors, and specifically a lot of our work is around teen mentors. So when we think about older youth mentoring younger youth, it's really that win-win, especially in a school, because both the mentor and the mentee benefit. So again, those stats about feeling more positive, increase in empathy, improved social skills, improved academic achievement, increased motivation. And that idea of often when we have older youth working with younger youth, or adults working with youth, really fosters that understanding and appreciation of the diversity, because you may not be mentoring somebody who looks like you, who has grown up like you, who is in the same faith community or whatever that might be. So that's one of the real benefits right now, and I think it's back to that idea that we're less likely to be unkind to people we know something about. So even by getting to know one person that's different from you, it might spill over into how we look at and how we treat other people that may not be the same as us in whatever way that is. Especially now as we are still moving through COVID, there are a lot of mental health benefits to our students, and for a lot of, at least for a lot of the schools that I'm working with and youth that I work with, this is increasingly important, is that idea about how do we support mental health. And so these were some of the benefits that came up in research. So a more positive affect and outlook. In a lot of the mentoring kind of pairings where there's some physical activity involved, the mentors talked about how that provided a break from the stressors in their lives. So, if the mentor and the mentee are going to shoot baskets or even going for a walk or something like that, really that benefit for the mentor. Improved self-confidence, and then improved resilience. So that idea that I can do this, and that if a problem occurs, I, with support from my peers or the adult that's supervising me, can help with that and support. And so that idea of how do you encounter a problem or a situation and then be able to move through it with some support. So I don't know, Rose or Elaine, if you've seen other benefits that aren't on here that have come out of some of the mentoring relationships or situations that you've been involved with.
Well, I guess I'll briefly say, with our school right now, we're seeing a lot of absenteeism in our schools. A lot of our students are tired. I don't know. They come to school, and when they do come to school, they're tired. So I'm thinking they're gamers. Some even admit they are gamers, and they're on social media. So this is what I see here. We don't have the the program that I need for them. That's why I'm looking for some resources to see if I could help somehow. I know our kids need some help. And it's mental health issues too. I think they're so used to being home from the COVID scene. They don't want to be in school. You know, they're safe at home. I don't know. It just seems really weird that a lot of them choose to stay home. And that's the struggles we're having here. The struggles, and then we have to bring them back in, and they do come in and then they would disappear for a while and they come in. Some are getting better though. I mean, I definitely have to say they are getting a lot better, but there's still those handfuls, like I would say about, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 kids that I worry about that don't have that support in their homes. So how do I work with them here?
And Elaine, I hear that absentee comment all over. It seems to be in almost every school that they are having challenges getting kids to school post-COVID. And so, and I think some of it comes down to that idea that they've lost those connections at school, and sometimes that's scary to come back when you don't know, who's there, or you've lost some of those, not that you've lost your friends, but you've been out of touch and those kinds of things. So again, one of the benefits of mentoring is that often we see an increase in attendance. So that's something to think about too, and students showing up more and feeling more connected. So we'll talk a little bit more about that too.
Okay, thank you.
And then benefits to the mentees. So these are some of the results that were found in actually a Canadian study through Big Brothers Big Sisters. So these came from children and youth who were paired with an adult mentor in a mentoring relationship that more than likely they met once a week for an extended period of time, so for a year-ish. So again, that idea of having high levels of school bonding, which usually means they're going to show up, increased academic performance, participation in extracurricular activities, less likely to have behavior problems, less likely to have conduct problems, less likely to be victimized or bullied. So those were the results that came out of that particular study. And then again, when we look at the specific benefits around mental well-being, a lot of it is around mentees feeling heard or listened to. And we know that often our children and youth don't feel like they're heard or like they've been listened to. Feeling less isolated, which again is so important as we come out of a situation where we've been pretty isolated for a long time. Decreases in anxiety, increased hope for the future, and an increased sense of belonging and acceptance. So some important outcomes from setting up mentoring initiatives or being mentored. So we have some stories or some examples of different types of mentoring and different mentoring initiatives that are happening across the province. And I think, Kim, do we have a clip for the IYMP?
Yeah, we do. It's unfortunately in the notes section, so I'm not too sure if Al can pull those up and then show them. I can try and pull. I'm having. So go ahead.
I was gonna think, can we put the link in the chat and then I can show it from there, or no?
I don't know if where Andy's got them sitting. Oh, Al's got it right there.
Okay, let's try this. I don't know if I do this, if you can.
So while, oh, there we go. So just a quick clip. So Andrea Dion is from Everactive, and she is one of the Indigenous youth engagement leaders. And this is a clip that she presented at our summit in October. And so you're going to see a little bit about some highlights about the Indigenous Youth Mentoring program that Everactive does. And Elaine will make sure that we get you a connection here so that you can connect with Andrea about their program. And then we also spliced it together so that you could hear about some of the success stories from the youth as part of this program.
Okay, so hopefully this will work. You can give me a thumbs up if you can see it and hear it.
So this is a highlight from our
It's good.
Indigenous Youth Mentorship program. It's a short video. It's a few years old, but it is still talks about the full essence of Indigenous youth mentorship and why it's important. So you'll hear from the leaders. You'll hear from some community champions. You'll also hear from some of the program planners, so the ones that are at the heart of it, as well as the kids, because the kids are what really matters about all of this work. So 1 second here.
Center in Colban on your reserve. This is your time to have your voice heard. Okay, so the mentors know what games that you guys want to play.
The whole idea of the program is to have high school mentors leading the program, running the activities.
It gives them an opportunity to play as a team. It gives them an opportunity to learn about their body. It gives them an opportunity to learn how to run better, faster.
It's a pretty simple program. There's food, a healthy snack, physical activity, and then sometimes a cultural program.
We're gonna sing powwow. A powwow is our cultural. We dance for a powwow. We sing. Dancing represents our community, and when we dance, it's medicine to us. It helps us heal.
Why do you think Carvana imagined the Green Valley? Because
she's hungry.
And she's lonely and scared as well.
Man, our team is awesome. I think our mentor is a role model for the kids, I guess.
The sense of belonging is so important to these students because they might not always be getting that sense of belonging from the family or from the school.
It gives them encouragement to go and do their own thing.
For a lot of the programs we run, transportation is one of the biggest challenges. So many of the kids have to rely on the bus system, and without that, it's a very spread out reserve.
Pretty exciting. We catch a bus home with the kids. Usually they wouldn't let me get off the bus, always talking to me and having fun.
Mentor means that somebody helps you, and if you're feeling down, they can help you with stuff.
What I measure as success is just happy, smiling faces. So if kids are running around and they're happy, if I see kids sweating, I like to measure our success in sweat and smiles.
Great, thank you for watching that. So some of the strategies and success stories that we had with IYMP, they've been so many. We've done so much work in our Indigenous communities, and with COVID, we even had some communities that were still running Indigenous youth mentorship virtually, which was really cool to see. And they actually gained a lot of skills in terms of post-production, TikToks, all of these things that, you know, are so relevant and became so front of mind through the COVID pandemic. So we've had a lot of great opportunities to share success through this time too. But this is one of the biggest successes.
And what
is the
Indigenous Youth Mentorship Program means to me is that it gives more opportunities for our little youth and us to have a successful life.
Just gives you a good feeling and makes you feel like you're doing something right. So that's why I decided to be a mentor.
To me, was just a extra credit thing to do right.
then I met the kids and I was like, whoa, I could really be someone to look up to.
So before I move on, I wanted to share that Mitchell, the first young man, finished his grade 12 this past spring. I'm really proud of the work he did to get there. He had an extra year of his studies. COVID was really tough on him mentally, so he needed that extra year. So I'm really proud of him for finishing. And in our community, and I know this is happening a lot with COVID, but they had flags for each of our graduates. So Mitchell had his own flag. And so when I drove by this past spring, of course, I was in tears because, you know, I know Mitchell personally. And then our young lady from Picani, she's also in her second year of post-secondary studies right now. And Jacob, this last fellow here, he's actually in his third year at UVic, doing some amazing stuff in the Bachelor of Sciences program. So our success stories with our mentors are phenomenal. My daughter was a mentor. She's her second year of education right now at the University of Alberta in Native Studies. So, you know, we see the impact it has, and we see the impact it has in the little guys' lives. And it's something that can never be taken from them. Like Jacob said, it's an experience that just, whoa, you know, it is a whoa experience.
So I placed the Everactive site for IYMP.
It is a whoa experience.
In the chat box. And at the very bottom of that page, you'll find the coordinators' names and contact information if you need to reach out to find out a little bit more about IYMP and how they get involved in, currently they're working in Alberta schools, but I'm not sure if the goal is to reach out outside of the province. So,
I think, Kim, that the IYMP program now received national funding.
Oh, perfect.
There are opportunities at least across Canada. It started out in Alberta, but it's changed now. So yeah, and certainly I think they're open to talking with different communities about ways to get something started there.
Perfect. Elaine, I see that you're on the move, so you're off to go get your grandbaby. So we will make sure that you get this piece, and then I'll also follow up with an email to get you some more of those contact information.
Okay, thank you for some of the stories. I think they're very helpful, and I can't wait to see some connections here. Thank you.
Great.
You're welcome. No problem, Rose. We'll move along. The next story that we had to share with you is about a rural community, Athabasca Mentorship Program. So Athabasca is about an hour and 45 minutes north of Edmonton. And they've increased their recruitment in their local high school for their grade 11 and 12 mentors. And they were able to do this by doing a quick 10-minute presentation to all of their grade 11 and grade 12 classes, and then sent out in various ways daily reminders to sign up to become a mentor. And then they are offering credits if they become a mentor. And that's through the Career and Technology Studies courses. And on our website, you will find the information about those CTS courses, but also the other resources that help accompanying completing those courses. They also did displays and set up different bulletin boards in their hallways. And then they had folks that were mentors and mentees sitting in the hallways during certain lunch hours to answer any questions students may have, whether they wanted to be a mentor or what it was like to be a mentee. They also worked with their career counselor to ensure that the students had no classes during the time where the mentoring was happening. Some of the challenges that they came across was that the high school lunch hour didn't necessarily meet up with the lunch hour of the elementary or the middle school So they had to work through that. And the high school students needed to have a spare or a block of time before lunch in order to be a mentor. So next year, they've already started the discussion with the high school administration, and they're going to be offering mentorship as the option. So they don't need to worry about having that free spare time. It will all work naturally in their schedules. So that's a little bit about the Athabasca mentoring program.
Actually, this is Elaine again. I just got a text from my granddaughter saying 5:30, so I have some time. I'll just hang out.
Perfect. Welcome back.
Great.
Elaine,
did you want to talk about Norwood?
Sure. I was just going to say that, Elaine, being in a junior senior high, that idea about the career and technology studies courses and students being able to get credits for mentoring might be something that is interesting and perhaps motivating for some of the students. So we can make sure you get some information on that and maybe connection to somebody who's offered those before.
That'd be great.
So Norwood is an elementary school in Edmonton, and Spruce Avenue is their feeder junior high school. So with support, this all started during COVID. So with support from Edmonton Big Brothers Big Sisters, they started a virtual mentoring initiative with a grade 1 class in Norwood and a grade 8 class in Spruce Ave. And the grade 1 teacher was not really sure how this was going to go with her class of pretty rambunctious, I think there was like 25 of them, pretty energetic little grade 1s sitting and trying to get onto their computers to meet with their grade 8 buddies. But it was highly successful. So once a week, the grade 8 students would log on and the grade 1 students would log in, each on their own computer, but in the same area so they could be supervised. And they spent, I don't know if it was half an hour or so together doing activities online. And they, again, both teachers talked about the huge engagement that they noticed, how they couldn't wait to get on and talk to their buddies. One little guy who barely said a word in grade 1 was super chatty with his grade 8 buddy. Some that had a really tough time focusing were totally engaged in what they were doing. And really, again, because it was a class, the grade 8 class, a lot of those kind of unlikely mentors emerged because it wasn't, the kids that we think about as being our leadership students, or, the ones who have the best social skills or whatever that was. So really an opportunity for a lot of different students to shine and to benefit from it. And at the end of the year, they were able to have an in-person meeting because our restrictions had been lifted. And again, carrying it on this year, they were hoping to do more in-person mentoring. So kind of a cool example of how it could be virtual and still work. And even with, sometimes the whole class to whole class can be not always super effective, but in this case, it worked really well. So another kind of cool example of how that mentoring can take place. And I think Kim, there's a webinar video clip that has more information about this too on our on the AMP website.
Yeah, if I can find it, I'll throw the link into the chat box while you talk to us a little bit about Wainwright.
Right. So Wainwright High School, it's a small-ish town east of Edmonton, so somewhat rural. And Vince Hill is the principal there. He's in a K to 12 or 7 to 12 school. He came from a K-12 school in Bazzano, where he started mentoring initiatives. So when he arrived at Wainwright, he was really excited about getting something going there, and was in the throes of starting to make plans when COVID hit. So they all got shelved. But this year, he's back at it again. And what they're really trying to do is do really across the school mentoring. So again, to give lots of students the opportunity to be mentors. And so they've been pairing up their grade 12 students with their grade 9, their grade 11s with the grade 8, and their grade 10s with the grade 7, to give those different grades some leadership type experiences, and also to create that greater sense of community across the school. Because we know when students across the grades start to get to know each other, they again treat each other differently, and you can see a lot of conflicts, the number of conflicts decreasing because the students know each other across the grades, not just within their own grade. So that's how they're kind of getting that together. They meet outside the classroom, and they're trying to coordinate at least a half hour every 2 weeks. So it's still in development, and he promised he'd keep us posted on what that's going to look like. That high school to junior high mentoring, at least here, is becoming more common, or even grade 8s mentoring grade 6s, so that when the grade 6s come to that junior high, they know people and have a buddy and those kinds of things. So it's just another example of a mentoring initiative across grades in a school, and a school that doesn't have support from a mentoring organization. So ways to do it, kind of internally without having the benefit of an organization to help out.
So Caroline, because Vince is part of our teen mentoring in school subcommittee. It was nice that he was able to share this because he had a staff meeting today. I'm wondering if I reach out to Vince, if he would be willing to have a conversation with Elaine around how to get this mentoring up and going in terms of that connection.
I'm sure he would, Kim, or his the assistant principal there, Aaron, has been really involved as well, and so I'm sure either Vince or Aaron or both would be happy to do that.
So Elaine, I'll work in kind of the background, and then I'll send you an email to connect you up with another person to connect you up with Vince. So
Thank you.
in the chat box, I provided the link to the Norwood Spruce Ave example, because Kimberly, the grade 1 teacher, presented at our AMP summit, and it's about 45 minutes, but she goes through all of the different steps on how she started the e-mentoring up with grade 1s. So with the older kids, it might go a little bit more smoothly since they're not learning that technology right from scratch.
Kim, I'm wondering if, since we have Elaine has us all to ourselves right now, if maybe it's either sharing your story, or I think, Elaine, you've told us a little bit about what has made you think about getting mentoring started in the school and some of the challenges that your students are facing. But I don't know if this is a time where you can just ask us questions, or if there's anything else that you want to know or that we could help you with, and then we can share some of our resources.
Well, our senior high is very small, and I think we're finding. I'm hoping to hang in there. It is halfway through the first semester here, and I'm constantly trying to find ways and how how to keep them in school. It's very hard. The motivation is very low in our high school, and they're the ones that I truly believe is our leaders. So I guess I don't know. I'm really stumped on how. I know if you give some power to a child, to a youth, I know a lot of good things can happen. It's just trying to get there. Just any ideas would be very empowering to help to get it going, because our numbers are, there's some that don't, for example, because I'm new, I'm just learning to build that trust with the students, right? And it's coming along. I see it coming along, but there's some that won't even say a word to me when I ask them questions, and I'm thinking, are you on your earbuds? Are you? No, they just won't say a word to me. It's like they clam right up. I don't know what it is, some mental health stuff. I don't know. It's just kind of hard. I'm just looking to see where, we can help these young people.
Caroline, the first thing that comes to mind in listening to the challenges that Elaine's facing is some of the work that natural supports. Last year we had the webinar and we talked about social snacking, and during COVID it was that easy way to make those initial connections. And I remember the breakout groups came up with that seemed to be a good connector, that good first step to make those connections and start building those trusting relationships. What are your thoughts around that?
For the high school students to be involved in doing that, Kim, or the adults and the students?
I mean, we could present the information to Elaine, and I think it could go both ways to try to get some motivation going within the school to build connections all around.
Yeah, Elaine, Kim's there's an organization in Calgary that did some work around this concept of social snacking, and it's that idea that if you go to the same place all the time to buy your groceries.
I'm sorry, social
snacking, like a snack.
Okay.
And it's kind of that idea that, when you go to the same place all the time to get your coffee, or you go to the same place all the time to get your groceries, and the person starts to know you and they'll talk to you, or they'll, ask you how you are today or learn your name. It's kind of, there's research about the mental health benefits of that idea of just those quick, short connections that we make with people and how those build. So I know in some schools, they've been looking at that, both with the adults to the students, but also getting the students involved in social snacking with each other. And, I think one school was doing a bit of a contest to see how often people, would make eye contact with another person in the hallway and say good morning or something like that. So again, as we come back from COVID and have lost some of those connections, a really small way to start getting some of that back, and just seeing if it makes a difference, or if it notices a difference, or what students notice when they do that in the hallway, smile and say good morning or hi or whatever to people that they may not normally talk to.
I do a lot of that. I go in the hallways. I'm saying good morning, and some respond, some don't. But I try to do everything I can just to build that relationship. It's, I mean, I can honestly say that it is getting a little better. I mean, students come into my office. I have a beautiful office, by the way, and they come in and come and chat and come sit around. So I know I'm making some leeway with the students, but it's the high school. They're a tough group. They're so closed. And these are the ones that are going to be our leaders. And well, some are leaving soon. But I kind of worry because their skills, their social skills are, I don't know, maybe just to me, they don't have very good social skills. But anyway, I'm taking most of your time here.
No, Elaine, is there an elementary school close by?
Oh, yes. Well, actually, you know, you asked me that. In September, the new school is just right next door here. That's the elementary school. So it should be opening up in the fall of 23. So right now they're about, I don't know, they're across the road, but still a ways. But next year they'll be close by.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's, I don't know what it is about that age difference between high school and elementary, but sometimes that's where students, we can get them engaged in mentoring those much younger ones. And then, you know, even for some of our students, our older students that aren't really confident readers, they can still read to those little guys. So sometimes some of those pairings don't seem to be as intimidating or scary as a starting place to go even to set up, you know, reading buddies. So you go read with a grade 2 kid once a week, and it's at least a bit of a starting place. And usually those little guys are so excited for their big buddy to come.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that would be a good, I think that would be probably better than teaming them up with juniors, because some of the juniors are little, you know, little jacks.
Yeah.
But you know, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Well, and it's a good feeling to go to the classroom door and that little person face lights up and they run to see you. That probably doesn't happen with junior high students.
No.
At least not as much.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
And another idea that was shared with me was in those informal, so Caroline talked about doing the reading buddies, but we also had recess mentors where we had some of our junior high students from a school that would come over during either phys ed or during recess times, whatever worked in their schedule. And then they would just come and they would be able to help out as an extra set of hands in those classes. But then they were, it was more a group kind of piece where natural connections were being made with the kids. They wasn't actually set up with a one-to-one reading buddy, but more as this junior high student going into a phys ed classroom and then with the teachers, and then we're at recess time and teaching the kids how to play soccer or making sure that they were following the rules, those types of things. And like Caroline had mentioned, sometimes our least expected youth shine in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline, do we want to show Elaine some of the resources that we have?
Sure, I can do that. I say that confidently. We'll see if it works. Yeah. So on the Alberta Mentoring Partnership website, under resources, there's a section that's specific to mentoring in schools. And so if we go into that section, there are several resources that can help when you're getting something started. So this first one, the framework for building mentoring relationships in schools, it's got a lot of kind of just things to think about as you start out, a lot of kind of planning templates, some other ideas. So it's one resource that you might want to take a look at. It's organized into sections, so you don't have to go cover to cover. You can kind of see which sections look like they're going to be what you need right now. So there's some good information in there. And these high school team mentoring books. So there is a handbook and an activity book. And they were originally created to support the career and technology studies courses. But they're also really good, even if the students aren't taking those courses, there's really great information in there for them about, what's the role of a mentor. There's information in there about different like developmental stages. So if they're mentoring a 7-year-old, what kinds of things can they expect a 7-year-old to be able to do and things like that. So and then there's the high school mentoring activity book, which has ideas for the mentors to do with their mentees. So they can kind of look through those and get ideas and maybe not do exactly what it says, but it gives them some things to think about or to build on to do with their mentees. So there's those two books. And then the other one is, the toolkit somewhere else, I think. I'll just go back here for a second. We go under resources, mentoring in schools. The team mentoring toolkit. So again, it's kind of like a do-it-yourself guide to setting up team mentoring. And it was really developed with communities in mind that don't have access to a mentoring organization to support them. And so you can see again, it's divided into a whole bunch of different sections that you can just click on and go to that section. So, you can go to the planning your program section, and it just has different places to start. It's kind of formal, and you may not want to be that formal. So you can kind of take what you want from it. There's information in here about training your mentors, and on our website, there is an actual online mentor kind of training organization that students can take. So it's there's no cost to it. And they can just log in, or if you want to have them all together and, they can each log in from their own devices and go through that training. They get a certificate at the end, which is kind of, can be helpful for them if they're applying for jobs or those kinds of things. So the training is also right there. But this takes you through, all the different steps that you might need. And there's also a toolkit that has all kinds of templates. So if you need to send a letter home to get permission, there's a template there in Word, so you can adapt it to make it meet your needs. If you want to just give kids the experience of an interview and go through a bit of an interview to be a mentor, there's information about that in there. There's, little application forms. So there's all kinds of tools and resources within this toolkit. That's all online, and you can just download what you need.
That's great. You're sending me the web link, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We can do that for sure.
Caroline, if you go into the resources, it popped out. Perhaps we could share the Indigenous mentoring, go down to the Indigenous mentoring tab and talk about the resources Tanya's been working on.
That's a key word that just popped up. I know my language, so I see that
So for a while, AMP has had this document or this resource called Considerations for Mentoring Indigenous Children and Youth. It's really long and pretty print heavy. So when Tanya Toronjo joined AMP as our Indigenous mentoring lead, she had suggested that there be some shorter, more concise resources that are linked back to the bigger ones. So she has created some tools that are I don't know. Can I just download them, or do I have to sign up? Just let me see what this one's like. Oh, I can just click here. So here's an example. So it's really it's much more readable. It's much more user friendly, and it's got kind of the tips. And this one is about the components of effective program. And so it's kind of a step-by-step things to consider. And then it's got the links in it to the larger document if you need more detail. So these have been set up kind of on different areas that you might want to explore. So how might, you know, for especially when we think about schools that are setting up mentoring and they may not have a lot of knowledge around Indigenous culture, then how can they engage community organizations that can support them in setting things up? So there's all kinds of different ideas and tools in that section. And Tanya's a great resource, so I'm sure you know, we can put you in touch with Tanya as well to share more. And she's also going to be adding some pieces to the teen mentoring resources as well that are specific to mentoring in Indigenous communities or for non-Indigenous mentors mentoring Indigenous youth.
So Elaine, I put the link to both resources that Caroline just shared. So the mentoring in schools and then the Indigenous mentoring is there.
Thank you. I feel really special here. I'm sure I'm going to be able to get started hopefully before Christmas. I really feel something positive that needs to help to reinforce these our youth. They need something to keep them here.
Elaine, another way that I can support you through your mentoring initiative journey is spend some time, take a look at the website. If you're having difficulty trying to find things, just you can reach out to me and I can we can walk through that together. If you're not having difficulty with that, but you're reading through and you just have some questions that you might want to ask, I've kind of walked through different folks through just kind of coaching and figuring out, okay, what would be the next steps? Have you considered those types of pieces? So, you know, we're definitely here to help you as you're getting started with your program.
Okay. And you're Kim, right?
Yes, I'm Kim. Yeah.
Okay.
Caroline, do we want to do the survey now or just have Shannon send it out to both Rose and Elaine at the end?
Well, let's maybe we could just have Shannon send it out. That's probably easier.
Yeah, we'll do that. And we have Elaine, a resource spotlight webinar coming up December 6th. So you'll get that information sent to you. And I'm just going to put my contact information in the chat box for you. Make sure I have double letters and I sometimes forget to put them all in there. And that's really what we had to share with you today, Elaine. Do you have any other questions or thoughts that are coming to mind right now?
Well, one of the things I don't have is a pen and pencil or paper handy here because I had to move. I lost connection when I walked to my office because I thought I was just going to put you on my phone so I could leave and hopefully keep you on my phone when I'm driving, but I didn't have to leave. So I lost connection for a while. So I'm hoping that I just get emails with my contacts. This way I don't have to, I don't have a pen to write down what Kim just sent me on the notes or whatever she sent it on.
I will definitely send this to you, Elaine. I'll do a follow-up email, making sure that we get the contacts, some of the information here, and both an email and a phone number for you to connect up with me.
All right.
So have a great evening. I hope it's not too chilly in Saddle Lake this evening.
No, it's beautiful. I've been sick. I don't know. I just got back to work today. But I needed to come back to work because I was feeling a little bit guilty that I'm not in school. But I'm back. So I survived the whole day and it's almost 5:30 here. So I did really well today. And thank you for all the information today.
You're welcome. Have a great evening and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.
Okay. Yeah,
Take
thanks.
care.
Bye, Elaine.
What happened?
Kim, I think the chat should say too, and then all of the links that were in there will be in the chat.
So Shannon, because Rose had to leave early and should probably watch the webinar, the rest of it, and then we have Elaine. We'll just do the survey